how she lived for over 20 years with absolutely no financial security because she was never allowed to truly understand what was happening financially. That is one of the cruelest parts of financial abuse. Healthy relationships do not make one person feel like a child asking permission. What happens after the breakup or the divorce is probably the most important thing I can say in this entire video. Financial abuse only survives when Have you ever noticed how some people don't realize they're being financially abused until the relationship is already breaking down? Not because they were irresponsible, and 100% not because they were lazy, but because they trusted someone that they loved. And slowly, over years, they were cut off from money decisions, independence, confidence, and eventually their options. A lot of women watching this right now are not trapped because they love him too much. They are trapped because they are terrified of what happens financially to them if they leave. And the thing is, honestly, that fear is real. Because for years, they sacrificed careers, pensions, promotions, independence, earning power, financial security to raise children, to run the home, support their partner's career, and hold everything together behind the scenes. Then one day, the relationship ends, and suddenly the person who built their career while you built the family acts like the money was always theirs. That is what this video is all about, because financial abuse is one of the most hidden forms of abuse there is. And I genuinely believe thousands of people are living through it right now without even fully understanding what is happening to them. So today, I want to talk honestly about it. I want to validate what so many people are experiencing. I want to explain the patterns. I want to help you protect yourself emotionally and financially if you are currently going through this. Because what I keep seeing in the comments on my videos always shocks me. I always see people saying things like, I had no idea how much money he earned. I had no access to the accounts. Or, for example, he just looked after everything for us. He controlled everything. I raised the children for 20 years, and now he says I contributed nothing. Or I made a video about financial abuse, and I have people say, this is literally my life. And the scary part is, many of these people did not describe their partners as obviously abusive in the beginning. In fact, a lot of them described them as being very generous, very protective, very responsible, often successful, and people that they loved and cared about. Some people even said, he took all the pressure off me. It was great. And this is where financial abuse becomes so psychologically confusing. Because at first, it can look like care. What it can look like is it can look like safety. It can look like provision, like a partner is taking away a certain job that needs to be done. They might say, don't worry about the bills. Let me handle the finances. You don't need to stress yourself out. You stay home with the children. I'll take care of us. And for many people, especially, I mean, this works both ways, men and women, but in many cases it happens to be women that I'm speaking about, but it's usually when they're raising the children. And when people say things like this, obviously it can feel very comforting. I'll take care of everything. But slowly, without realizing it, you stop having visibility of the finances. And at first, it might not really bother you, but then you stop having control. Then eventually, you stop having any power whatsoever. So it gets to the point where you don't know what's in the accounts. You don't know what debt you might have. You don't know what the household's income is. You don't know where the savings are, or what investments have been made, or anything to do with payments. You don't know what's real anymore financially. And some people spend decades living like that. One woman described how she lived for over 20 years with absolutely no financial security because she was never allowed to truly understand what was happening financially inside the relationship. And Another described being told not to work anymore, only to later discover the finances had completely collapsed while her husband secretly hid the truth for years. Another said she escaped after decades and realized she had no credit history, no financial identity, no access to accounts, and no idea how to rebuild. And this is why financial abuse is so devastating psychologically, because it doesn't just damage your bank account, it damages your nervous system. You begin living in uncertainty. You become scared to ask questions. You become scared to spend, even on little things. And worst of all, you become scared to leave. So you won't challenge anything with them or ask the questions. Some people even describe arguments starting every time they even ask something about money. And that's not normal. If somebody becomes aggressive every time transparency is requested, that tells you everything. Healthy relationships do not fear openness. Healthy relationships do not punish questions. Healthy relationships do not make one person feel like a child, asking permission for even the littlest thing. And one of the saddest parts of all of this is how society often completely undervalues unpaid labor inside relationships. Because let's be honest, raising children is work. Managing a home is work. Cooking every day for someone is work. Cleaning is work. Being the emotionally supportive partner is work. Being the stable parent is work. Sacrificing your career is basically work also, because you're not getting to where you would be. And often the working partner was only able to build their career because somebody else was holding the entire home together behind the scenes. But when the relationship breaks down, that contribution suddenly gets minimized. And many people are made to feel financially worthless because their labor was not attached to a direct salary. That is one of the cruelest parts of financial abuse. I always say it's very easy to progress a career when you have all your housework, cooking and childcare for free. And yet, because the very sacrifices that benefited the family become weaponized against the person who made the sacrifice. And this is why so many people stay trapped longer than people understand. Not because they're weak. Let me just reiterate this. Not because they're weak, not because they're stupid or anything like that whatsoever, but because leaving can genuinely feel financially terrifying, especially if somebody has slowly dismantled your independence over the years. And this is where I need people to listen, to really understand something important. Financial abuse is often about control, far more than it is just about money. Some people do not want a financially independent partner because independence threatens control. Because if you can survive without them, then you can leave. And that is why some controlling people slowly isolate their partner from earning power, confidence, qualifications, support systems, and financial freedom. Because dependence creates fear, and fear creates control. Now, something else I noticed in many of the stories and people that I've spoken to was what happens after the breakup or the divorce. And honestly, this is where financial abuse often becomes even more brutal, because some people become obsessed with power and winning. Suddenly, money gets moved, it gets hidden, accounts move, lawyers appear, they've got the money. Assets and investments start to disappear. Children become leverage. And the same person who once said, we're a team, now says, I'm the one that's contributed this, and that money is mine. One person described being removed from all accounts completely after infidelity. They were cheated on and then removed. Another said her partner rewrote 25 years of their relationship and painted himself as the victim. Another described how she was rebuilding her business quietly because she knew deep down she was losing autonomy financially. And that's why I need people to hear this next part very, very carefully. If If you are currently in a controlling relationship, please stop waiting for the perfect emotional moment before preparing yourself financially. Preparation is not betrayal. Preparation is simply protection. Quietly understanding your finances. Know where the accounts are. Know what debts exist. Know what assets exist. Know the password to accounts, what investments you have. Know, the policies of your banks and the household, the mortgage. Know the paperwork. Know what your life actually looks like financially. Know what your partner is earning and what their earning potential will be. Because some people only discover the truth when they're trying to leave, and by then it's closed off. They are emotionally exhausted and financially terrified at the exact same time, while the partner also, or ex-partner, tries to make it difficult. Please stop feeling guilty for trying to protect yourself. I see so many people scared to document things, scared to ask their partner questions, scared to speak to friends or even lawyers at times, scared to learn their own rights, scared to save money privately. But the person controlling you financially is already protecting themselves. You are not a bad person just for protecting your future, especially if children are involved. Now, I also want to say something, and I know this might upset some people. The legal system does not always emotionally understand this form of abuse, because bruises are visible. Financial control often is not. And sometimes people walk away from decades of sacrifice with less security than the person who controlled everything. By far. The reality devastates people psychologically because it creates the crushing feeling of, I gave my life to this family and now I have nothing. And I want to say, if that's you, I need you to hear me very, very, very clearly. Your contribution mattered. Your sacrifices mattered. Your years of hard work mattered. All the childcare, the meals, the emotional labour, the support, the housework, the home you built, everything you did, all the little things, the real work, the birthday parties, the Christmas presents, all the behind the scenes things that you did. That is real contribution to life. That's real value. Work is one thing. Life is another. And nobody gets to erase that simply because it did not come with a pay slip at the end of the month. Now, just quickly, if you're new here, my name is Brandon. Over 1 million people follow my insights across Instagram and Facebook. And this is where I like to go a little bit deeper here on YouTube. Having slightly longer conversations, more detailed explanations, more honesty around the things many people are scared to talk about, but I'm not. So all I'll ask is, if this video helps you, then please consider subscribing. Leave me a comment. I read them all. I really care about the conversations happening here and I enjoy it. And honestly, the comments on the last video I made opened my eyes massively to how widespread some of these problems really are. Now, I want to leave you with probably the most important thing I can say in this entire video. Financial abuse only survives when somebody believes you cannot survive without them. That is the entire illusion. And the reason some controlling people panic when you rebuild your confidence or start working again, or ask questions or understand finances, speaking to friends, family or lawyers, or you reconnect with support systems or relog into accounts, is because your independence threatens the entire dynamic. The moment you realize, I can survive on my own without this person, everything changes. And I know rebuilding can feel overwhelming, especially after years of fear. But one of the biggest lies financial abuse tells people is that you are trapped forever. Because let me tell you, you are not trapped. Yes, you may need support. Yes, you may need strategy to understand things. And you may need some time because it might have been years in the making. You may need help rebuilding financially and emotionally. But you are 100% not trapped forever. And honestly, some of the strongest people I have ever seen are people who rebuilt their entire lives after financial abuse destroyed their confidence. Because when somebody stops living all their life in constant fear, they become incredibly powerful. Now, if you found this helpful, I'll leave another video on the screen now that I think you should watch next, as I think it'll help. Until next time, take care.